Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam, the cream of all Vedic literature.
Okay.
Now, vegans plug your ears, but
It's creamy.
it's cream. Like if in the old days before pasteurized, homogenized milk, the cream would rise. You might have had yogurt like this too, or pre-vegan days. The cream would rise to the surface, and that would be the kind the little kids would stick their finger in, and oh my God, that's so good, because out of all the milk, that is like the sweetest, the most, the richest, right?
Mm-hmm.
They said of all the Vedic teachings, Vyasadeva says this is the cream of all Vedic teachings, and so he recommends studying it every day on a regular basis to recalibrate your direction, your motion, your movement in this world.
He also says it's the ripened fruit.
It's the ripened fruit.
And it's the work of the author in his maturity.
It's another thing, right?
Yeah.
For example, if you write, if Kaustubha wrote a book when he was 6, and then he wrote one when he was 18, and now at his beautiful ripe age of 54, if he wrote a book, what would be more philosophically sort of like
Valuable.
Yeah. I'd say your mature one. So this is the mature, ripened fruit of Vedic literature.
And it's creamy.
It's very creamy.
Krishna Drew.
And frothy and sweet.
Krishna Drew brought me some of what she gave to you last weekend when I saw her. You know what she gave me? She gave me a little thing of ghee.
Ahimsa ghee.
Ahimsa ghee. It's made from cows who are protected and cared for their entire life with love and attention. And then they take not just the regular milk, but the cream, and then you make the ghee out of that. That's what she gave me.
Actually, you make the ghee out of the yogurt,
Which is made out of cream.
which is made of the cream. Okay.
Okay.
I don't mean to correct you.
But you
know
don't
what, she
necessarily make
also
ghee out
gave
of
me-
yogurt. You can make ghee out of...
You
No.
can, but you're supposed to. The Ayurveda kavis, they say make it out of yogurt because it's got more of the enzymes.
Yeah.
But she gave me a ghee to give to you. Now I'm trying to think, if I don't give it to you,
Oh, she
I
gave you...
consider. She gave me 2, one for me and one for you. But I live.
well, I think
3
she
hours
was up for
north
it
of
by
you.
you
I'm
are
just
coming down
wondering
this
if I
weekend.
don't give that to you, is that considered stealing? Because
if
if
you
you
would have...
steal from a devotee, you know
Yeah.
the story of King Nriga?
I do.
Let me just tell this story quick. It's an important story. And it is from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'm not chasing a squirrel here. I'm going
This is
off
about
the trail.
shape-shifting, this story.
This is a shape-shifting. You hear these conspiracy theories about shape-shifting. Here's an actual shape-shifting story. All Krishna and his cowherd boyfriends were playing ball, and their ball fell in a well. And they're like, what are we going to do? We can't get our ball out. And so after many, many attempts, no, this wasn't the ball.
No.
No, there was no ball. Forget the ball. They looked down a well and they saw this lizard in a well. That's what it was. They saw this lizard in a well. And they were trying to, oh, look at this lizard. Look at this lizard.
Got to get him
And all
out.
of a
It's like
sudden,
a big lizard, right?
yeah, like a massive iguana. And Krishna went and touched that lizard, and that lizard turned into a very, very beautiful man. Just by Krishna's touch, he transformed this person. Just in the way we are all being transformed by hearing these pastimes of Krishna. He's turning our lizard-like minds into something very transcendental. So this person is, and Krishna just says, how did you get there? How did you become this hideous-looking iguana lizard? And he said, well, I mistakenly stole from a Brahmin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And because of that, I was cursed to be born as a lizard.
But he was given this special benediction, right?
That he would be liberated by Lord Krishna.
So that makes it all worth it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
May Krishna bestow that loving hand on us and get rid of my lizard-like form.
We could shapeshift. Someday.
I'm looking in my picture in the video right now. It's like I'm already shapeshifting. I'm turning more and more like a lizard every day.
But we can shapeshift in a more positive way, right? Yeah.
Yes,
from lizard to beautiful form.
Ooh. Okay. So we're going to dive into this sweet honey nectar pot right now. Thank you, by the way, for everybody writing. We're getting some really, really sweet emails.
Yeah.
Messages.
Yeah.
Two Swamis contacted us. Swamis I haven't heard from in years.
Swamis, yeah.
Bhakti
Mark Swami called you, right?
Yeah,
great soul. Kavichandra Swami wrote to us. Yeah.
Yeah.
It means, we should say, and I always say, when she'll, what?
This has to do with what we're talking about today, actually.
Okay, sure. That when, I was going to say that when Srila Prabhupada's disciples, his direct disciples, and particularly these people that have, for 50 years just given their life to practicing and sharing bhakti, when they say, hey, we're listening to Wisdom of Sages and we really like it, keep it up, that really, really, really means a lot to us.
For me, I think for me, Kaustubha, it's safe to say, like, that's our food. When there's a great soul who's given up everything, the comforts of material existence, to really figure out and head straight forward on the spiritual path. And then they give us a message, you're doing good, keep going forward.
That's all we need.
That's all we need. That can keep us going for years, that little encouragement, because, and as we're going to talk about today, we move forward in our bhakti path, not by our intense endeavor. I woke up, I did this, check that off the list, check that off the list, read the book, chanted the japa. That's all necessary. But to really get those blessings, that's what we feel like this is what we need in this life. The blessings is what is the actual current that pushes us. Because when people, I'm jumping the gun here, but when these people who are close to Krishna, by their activity, when we say close, we guys say, well, everyone's close to God. This is someone's argument. Matter of fact, I think Yudhisthira brought this up in the Bhagavatam too. How is God not close to everybody? In one sense, God is close to everybody. For example, the mother loves all the children. That's true. The mother loves all the children. But some children, as they get older, they develop a very affectionate relationship with the mom, even though they're 30, 40 years old. And another child at 17 gets sent to prison. Now, if you ask the mother, the person's a criminal. If you ask the mother, do you love your children? Who do you love more? A good mother will say, I love all my children the same. That being said, there's a special affection she has for the child that's dedicated, who comes over regularly, who brings her some, bread or some vegetables or some flowers or something like that. Mm-hmm. In the same way, God loves everybody. But when a person makes a special, specific endeavor to focus, how can I give myself to God? How can I renounce the things that are dragging me down, that are causing harm to other people, harm to other living beings, harm to the earth? Can I get focused on my spiritual life and learn to love all beings, love nature, love the earth? When you get really focused like that, you become an affectionate relationship with divinity. At that point, you don't want to offend those souls. You want the blessings of those souls. So that's how we move in bhakti. Of course, God loves everybody equally, but we want to find those souls. We want to serve those souls. We want to keep those souls close to us. And that's how we move forward, because we were saying yesterday, Krishna becomes owned by those great souls. Bhagavan becomes owned by those great
It's
souls.
their property.
Their property. And then we want their mercy. So that's why there's all this stuff, prayers to the guru, guru pranams, the lotus feet of the guru, etc., like that, because it's by the mercy of great souls that we make advancement.
Keep the great souls close. That's a takeaway for today.
I was about to say that. I was thinking of that, and you said the exact word for word what I was going to say.
It's a Krishna miracle.
It is. It is. It's all a Krishna miracle. Okay, my friend. So, yes. So anyway, also, if you like what we're doing, and if you want to tell your story, because everyone's got a little Krishna miracle thing going on, write it in Apple Podcasts, and that way the whole world can see. We read those, and we're a little overwhelmed with, messages on Facebook and messages on Instagram, but we read all, especially those ones on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Write it in there. Share us your story. Give us a 5-star review, and carry on. Okay, we are reading from the 2nd canto, chapter 3, the last verse.
No, the second to last verse.
The second to last verse. Let's start with these magical mantras, these mantras of appreciating the Bhagavatam, the gurus, etc. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan. Unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the most human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Gyana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshuru Nadatam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namaha. Kaustubha, I have 2 more Krishna miracles for you. Check this out. You're not going to believe this.
Make them quick.
Very, very quick. Very quick.
Okay.
There's a website called italki.com where you can learn foreign languages.
All right.
And you can get a tutor. And it's got thousands of people who are tutors for different languages. So I have a Sanskrit tutor and I have a Hindi tutor.
Look at you. You always tell me you got no time. It's because you're studying all these languages.
So check this out. The first one, who I just random. I hear them talking, something like that. The first guy, I was like, my name is Raghunath. He goes, oh, Raghunath, are you a member of ISKCON? I was like, well, I don't know if you call it a member, but I lived in the temple when I was younger. And he said, yeah, I went to the ISKCON temple in Chowpatty, Bombay for 4 years. Yes.
Get out.
I was like, you're kidding. That's my place. Randomly. And the other guy, the Sanskrit guy, same thing. He's like, oh, yes, I'm a member of ISKCON New Delhi.
But that Chowpatty one is
random.
Like, that's really
I know. It's a Krishna miracle.
That's like one time because I did have something to do with Radhanath Swami's Facebook page. I was like one of the administrators on it at one point. And so like sometimes, like on your screen, like something from that'll pop up, like someone just wrote to that. So I was getting this, at one point Photoshop got switched to like something that's sitting on your own computer to something that like you kind of connect to.
Yeah.
And so as I was going through that transition, I was online with someone from Adobe walking me through the process. And in order to do that, they kind of took control of my screen so that they, so that they could see my screen. And then that thing popped up like a message to Radhanath Swami's thing. It says, oh, you're knowing Radhanath Swami. Yes. Well, I through Gaur Gopal ji, who's this Radhanath Swami's disciple and like a famous figure now in India. He said, I read The Journey Home, and this book has entirely changed my life. And it's just going on.
It's a miracle. It's a Krishna miracle. You can't make this, one time me and Paramananda Prabhu, Shelter was on tour or practicing for a tour, and we had 10 devotees, and we were staying at my mother's house in Connecticut. And, it's the middle of like rural Connecticut. And we were like 10 devotees. She was living alone in this big house, and we were cooking every day and having prasadam and kirtan every day. We're doing this. And then, so I remember Paramananda was practicing yoga on the front lawn, and I was cooking in the kitchen. I get this knock on the door from the next door neighbor, who is newer since I was a little boy, lived there. And the guy knocks on the door. He goes, "Are there Brahmins living here?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "I saw a bunch of Brahmins on the front lawn. I'm a devotee from New Vrindavan, and it was this whole peculiar thing. Devotees were living across the street from us."
Look at
that. From my mom.
Okay. Now we're gonna enough of the Krishna miracles. The Krishna miracles for today.
We should have just Krishna Miracle Day. Like Thursday's Krishna Miracle Day.
All right.
It's good to hear them.
It is.
Okay. Certainly the heart is steel framed. This is text 24. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes and hair stand on end. Let me read that again. Certainly the heart is steel framed, which, in spite of chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change. Your heart doesn't change when ecstasy takes place and tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end. How am I reading this wrong?
You want me to try?
You try it.
Certainly that heart is...
It's a sentence run-on, I think. I'm going to criticize
run-on sentence. Certainly that heart is steel framed, which, in spite of one's chanting the holy name of the Lord with concentration, does not change when ecstasy takes place. Tears fill the eyes and the hairs stand on end.
Yeah.
There's these commas, they're meant to help us.
Pause.
But so this verse is talking about these symptoms are mentioned in other places in these sacred texts about that when one feels that pure devotional symptoms, ecstasies, like when we say hair stand, that means like you get goosebumps, right? You should feel something when you chant that name because it's non-different from God. You're in connection and you feel it. So here, these sages, they're saying, like, again, the previous verses were saying, if your eyes aren't seeing the forms of the Lord, then they're like the eyes on the peacock feather. They're not seeing anything. If they're not moving to those holy spiritual places, if the legs aren't moving, then the legs are like tree trunks. They're not going anywhere, and so on. And now it's saying, and when you chant that name, when you meditate on that mantra, if you're not feeling ecstasy, your heart is still steel framed, And this is kind of going back because when Shukadev Goswami opened up his instructions to Maharaj Pariksit, and the question was asked, what is a person meant to do at the time of death? It's to hear and then he said in text 11 of Canto 2, chapter 1, he says right off the bat, he says, "O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ways of the great authority. Following after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all." Right? And so now he's getting to that point that, and this is so crucial, that of all the practices of bhakti, this meditation, this chanting, whether it's done through music with a whole group of people, whether it's done on one's own, it's the most effective and efficient and central practice. And the other practices are really there to empower us to do this practice well. Like we hear Bhagavatam so that we can do this practice well, so that we can be focused on it with the right understanding, with the right intensity, with the right purity, with the right motive. And really that's how bhakti is practiced, that this practice of, like, say, initiation, right? People get initiated, like you and I, we have these names. It's not like we just made them up ourselves.
Pick the name out.
Yeah. But that they were bestowed upon us, you could say, as part of a ritual that was kind of like the handing down of this mantra. and then all of the practices that go with that, so that you can chant that mantra effectively. And so why don't we read a little bit of the commentary from Srila Prabhupada? I think it'll shed some light on this. You want to read? Should I read? I got
You
the.
read. You
okay.
read. You read.
So Prabhupada says the whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being. Right. This chapter is called Bhakti-yoga, the change of heart. Right. So the whole process of spiritual culture is aimed at changing the heart of the living being in the matter of his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord as subordinate servant, which is his eternal constitutional position. So with the progress of devotional service, the reaction of change in the heart is exhibited by gradual detachment from the sense of material enjoyment by a false sense of lording it over the world, and an increase in the attitude of rendering loving service to the Lord. Vidhi bhakti, or regulated devotional service by the limbs of the body, engaging one's eyes and ears and nose and hands and legs, is already explained here and before, is now stressed herein in relation to the mind. Now we're talking about we heard how the legs have to go here and the eyes have to go do this, and now we're hearing how the mind has to be engaged. The mind has to be engaged in meditating on this mantra, which is the mind, which is the impetus for all activities of the limbs of the body. It is expected by all means that by discharging regulated devotional service, one must manifest the change of heart. Right? If there's no such change, the heart must be considered steel-framed, for it is not melted, even when there's a chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We must always remember that hearing and chanting are the basic principles of discharging devotional duties, Shravanam and Kirtanam, fundamentals of Bhakti-yoga. And if they are properly performed, there will follow the reactional ecstasy with signs of tears in the eyes and standing of the hairs on the body, goosebumps. These are natural consequences and are the preliminary symptoms of the bhava stage, which occurs just before one reaches the perfectional stage of prema, or love of God. If that reaction does not take place, right? If when we chant this name, we're not feeling that,
Yeah.
even after continuous hearing and chanting of the holy name of the Lord,
Yeah.
it may be considered to be due to offenses only. That is the opinion of the Sandarbha. The Sandarbha is referring to the works of the great Bhakti-yoga philosopher Jiva Goswami. That's what he explains in his Sandarbhas. So this is like, let's talk about this idea, okay?
By the way, Kaustubha, before you even get into that, you're referencing the Sandarbhas, the Bhakti-yoga Sandarbhas by the great philosophers of Bhakti. One of them is Jiva Goswami. Nowadays in yoga culture, we throw this word Bhakti around.
Yeah.
So it's almost like throwing the word, I'm into heart transplants, or brain science, or like what's a scientific? Merrick, help me out here. What's some like a very
geology?
Geology. I'm a geology engineer. You can't just walk around saying geology engineer. I have a T-shirt that says geology engineer. I mean, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
You can't just say the word or the phrase geology engineer. We're all into geology. You got to be into it. There's a way to do it. There's a way to study geology. There's a way to study open heart surgery. You can't just have an open heart surgery T-shirt. There's a way we study it, and we study it from people who've done open heart surgery ahead of us, who studied it and they've dedicated their life to it. We're expert in the modern yoga culture to take a few things out of context and then frame it like it's our thing. I'm the person representing that thing, and we got to be careful because we got to hear it from authorized teachers. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
That's real cultural appropriation. When you try to make it your thing, all about you, it's coming from me. It's got to be followed by the way it's been practiced forever.
Right.
And Bhakti has been practiced how long? Forever. And if you don't believe it's been practiced forever, then you're not following Bhakti-yoga.
Okay.
You're not, right?
That's
Because
true.
that's the actual teachings of Bhakti anyway. It's an eternal practice. Devotion, souls that are sort of disenfranchised from source are trying to wake up and remember, I'm part of something bigger. If you feel like that, guess what? People have felt like that for 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, thousands of years ago. There's been people just, plebeians just like getting busy on all the minutia of life. And then some of those souls have been going, what is this world about anyway? What's the bigger picture here? And those souls have tried to find God somehow through a religious path, through introspection, through solitary prayer. If you feel like that too, you are one of these small demographics of the masses that say there's something bigger in life and they've moved forward. This is Bhakti-yoga, and it's been going on forever, as long as there's been souls and as long as there's been God. So for us to just hearing you say, practiced by the master Jiva Goswami, studying the Sandarbhas, it makes you realize this is a real, genuine system that you can learn. You can't just take it cheaply.
Woo!
Woo-hoo. I hope that was okay.
Yeah, that's great.
I think
Don't
being
take it
immersed
cheaply.
in
No, I'm with you. It's really important. And so you see, in one sense, what you're talking about is one's attitude or sentiments. And that if you don't have the right attitude, the right sentiments, the right understanding, and also the right lifestyle, then the potency of these practices won't take root. They won't set in, and that heart will remain steel framed, right? Yep. So it's all about getting to that nature of the heart, which is lying underneath that steel frame. That I'm gonna put forward 4 points, Raghunath, okay? And this is gonna kind of encapsulate the practice of bhakti. Are you ready? And then we're gonna focus on the latter 2 points.
This is your brainchild?
Speculation? Well, it's
No. Here's the deal. Here's the deal with speculation. Speculation means you're pulling it out of You're pulling it out of thin air. You're not pulling it out of thin air. You study, you imbibe this stuff, and then you sort of like chisel it down to bite-sized chunks.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Like for us, thick-headed ones to like easily digest. It's not speculation. Speculation means you're just coming out of nowhere with this stuff.
All right. So here are 4 points. One is that happiness through loving service is our true nature, right? Underneath that steel frame, that's what our heart is, and that's what we're meant to uncover. 2, false ideas impressed within our minds are the cause of us losing touch with our true nature and seeking happiness.
Say that again.
Okay. False ideas impressed within our minds are the cause of our losing touch with our true nature and seeking happiness externally.
Yes.
Okay. Third point. Here's the third point. The transformative practices of bhakti yoga are designed to purify the mind through contact with powerful sources of spiritual energy. Okay. Including the holy name.
Yes.
Like that's considered the most powerful, potent, electric, source of spiritual energy. And 4, the steady flow of the transformative energy requires the right conceptions, the right sentiments, and the right lifestyle. Otherwise, we cut the flow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we speak about these mantras or the names of Krishna, it's not that like its power is questioned within this tradition. Its power is there. It's just a question of how well or how able are we capable of receiving that power. It's an electric charge, but are we blocking that electric charge? Have we pulled out the plug on the electric charge? Are we somehow interfering with that flow of that electric charge?
Flow of the current of electricity.
Yeah. And so like, here are some ideas. Like for instance, I mentioned you need to have the right conceptions, the right sentiments, and the right lifestyle. So the right conceptions, for instance, that I'm the energy of God and God is the energetic source. right? I'm not God. I come from God. You know, I have the same nature as God, but I'm not God. That's an important conception. The right feelings of bhakti and experience of bhakti won't manifest. It'll be blocked. The power of that name will be blocked if I don't get that straight. You know, and
this is,
yeah,
you know, and just to run with that a little bit,
yeah.
it's really why Prabhupada, the guru of the devotees of Krishna, this is really why he came to the West, and his guru's mission also, which was, there's a misconception that we're God.
Commonly
Like,
present,
I'm a
yeah.
materialist, I get that. And then all of a sudden, I'm not a materialist, I'm a spiritualist, and I'm God. It's like we flip from one extreme to the other. And he put it very, very succinctly. Actually, you're sort of God, but you're sort of not God at the same time. And it was that distinction that like really separated. When you read these purports by the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, you really start to realize, oh, wait a second, we are part of God, but we are not fully God. And the other spiritual philosophy is, we are nothing. We are absolutely nothing, which is like, really? Then why am I even studying this stuff if I'm nothing? I mean, he really shined light on these two very misguiding pseudo-spiritual philosophies, which is, you are actually God, you just forgot. Not true. If you were God, why would you be an illusion? And the other thing is, all of it is nothing. It's like this existentialism. And then if that's the big deal, like, why do we have to study that we're nothing?
And what's the meaning to it all? Yeah.
Why even
But
talk about it?
Jiva is asking on the chat board, who thinks they're God? And please explain this. The idea is that some people interpret, say, the Upanishads as saying that we are all, not just that we are made of God's energy, but that we are God, that we are that energy. Somehow we've gotten out of touch with that. And the goal of yoga is to merge into that oneness again. And there's no distinction between me or you or me and God. It's
And
just
reclaim your godship.
right. But then as Raghunath asked the question, well, then how did I get in this position in the first place? Right. So that's a whole big topic, and we could spend a lot of time getting into that. But that's just one of the conceptions, right? But we have to understand, if I think I'm God, then my approaching God won't be with the right sentiments, you know, and that's the next thing, like kindness and humility and compassion and appreciation of others, particularly appreciation of other devotees, other people that are sincerely trying to connect themselves with God. And the right lifestyle. We have to live simply, you know, sattvic lifestyle. That'll help that flow. So like the sun is powerful, but if we're blocking the sun's rays, then we don't get the power of those rays. You know, if we're inside a house, we're not going to get a suntan, you know, because the walls and the roof of the house are blocking those rays. We need to get outside, you know. And so similarly, the power of these names, this mantra, super powerful, but we need to be able to receive it. And that's why there's all these considerations. And really, here's the practice, right? You know, people, like for instance, being initiated into a lineage of bhakti yoga means that you're given this name by the guru, handed down in the chain. And then the instructions of the guru, they're not just to mess with your life and take control of you or anything like that, right? People have all different kind of misunderstandings of what a guru is, you know, and it can be exploited and does get exploited by people that don't have the proper appreciation for what this is. But the idea is that the guru is going to give instructions to help you be more receptive to the power of these holy names. And that means I'm going to have to consider my sentiments. I'm going to have to consider my conceptions. I'm going to have to consider my lifestyle and make changes so that I become really receptive, so that the conductor, you know, is flowing.
Kaustubha.
Yes.
I think what we're doing with the Srimad, one of the things that's going on with the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam on the regular basis is we are becoming educated consumers. Just like before you buy a mattress, before you buy a pickup truck, right? Before you buy a flat screen TV, better to just not go to any place, Best Buy or whatever, and find a salesman that's going to sell you something. Be that educated consumer. People go with a spiritual longing. I need a guru. You're my guru. I think you're attractive. You're a guru. You looked at me like that. You're a guru because you dress like a guru. No, Become
Yeah.
the educated consumer. The Bhagavatam teaches you what is a real guru, what is a false guru, what should a guru embody, what should a student embody. Because if you say, I want to accept this person as a guru, but you don't even know yourself how to be a student. So people get cheated all the time, but oftentimes because they themselves were not that educated consumer.
Yeah.
So what we're doing with just studying the Bhagavatam is you're actually learning. This is what teacher means. This is what student means.
Right.
This is what I expect from them. This is what I shouldn't expect from them.
Yeah, it's
Right?
like when you go to buy a car, you need to be educated about it. Or if you walk into, like, I don't know if this is everywhere in the world, but like in America, there's this like kind of stereotype of like the seedy used car salesman, right?
Yeah.
And so if you walk into that used car salesman uneducated, he's going to sell you a total piece of junk, but he's going to be convincing you that it's like, you know, a great car. And so you need to be educated. And so when it comes to understanding what a guru is, you need to be educated. You need to be an educated consumer, right? And so here's what the guru is doing.
Consumer reports. This is transcendental consumer reports we're doing right now.
Okay. And so this is what the guru is doing. The guru's trying to help you understand these mantras and these spiritual practices. They're powerful conductors of spiritual energy. They will transform your mind so that your true nature underneath will arise, which will be divine love of God in every living being. But there are aspects of your conceptions or aspects of your sentiments or aspects of your lifestyle that may be interfering with the flow of that energy. So my instructions to you are to help you better fine tune that so that you'll be able to receive that energy. That's what a guru is doing. Okay. So now Prabhupada mentions here that if you're not feeling these feelings, if when you chant these holy names, tears aren't coming in your eyes and hairs aren't standing on end and all that, then that's due to offenses. Okay. Now let's look at this. When he says that, people that are familiar with this practice and so on, they'll know he's speaking about and this is mentioned in the Padma Purana, one of the Puranas, that look at you breaking out some text here. I don't know what you got here. There are 10 offenses. Yeah, look at you. There are 10 offenses in the chanting of the Maha Mantra, and chanting of these mantras.
So by the way, this was written by the saints, Bhakti-yoga Thakur, right?
Well, I'm saying it comes from he commented on them in great detail. Yeah.
Right.
But they're mentioned in the Padma Purana. And so let's look at the word offense. And what I want to do is I want to read the 10 offenses and you know, these 10 offenses, like even the word offense, like our certainly American mentality is like, we don't want anyone telling us what to do.
We don't like people.
Oh, I'm offensive, am I? Well, you know what? I like to speak my mind, and you're telling me I'm being offensive. Well, I don't care. That's the way I am. You know, so even the word of and the way that these 10 offenses are translated, like to me, like all the language is just grating against the American mentality. Like,
well, just, you know, language from the 60s is different than language now. You have to reframe things. What to speak of from the 20s, right? What to speak of like Shakespearean English. We can't even understand it. So it's important to update things. So
let's update it. Yeah.
We're going to update the 10 offenses. And the 10 offenses is something, if you ever lived in an ashram, is contempt like me and Kaustubha have, you read these every day before you chant. You
recite them by memory.
You recite them by memory. And whenever you recite anything by memory, it becomes very rote. So that becomes like that word, Mara. Write that down. I'm homeschooling all the kids today.
Okay.
We're doing jiu-jitsu. We're doing jiu-jitsu, Sanskrit, mridanga, and vocabulary.
Awesome.
And then
Rote will be right there.
Rote will be in there, and then we'll do soccer.
Okay.
Math.
Full day.
Anyway.
So we're going to try to read, and the point was like, Raghunath and I and people that are used to ISKCON temples will be used to this, like the morning program or after the you start with some songs and some puja ritual, and then you sit down to chant 16 rounds of the Maha Mantra. And before that, you recite these 10 offenses, but it sounds so robotic and so, it sounds so cult-like, quite frankly, right?
It's cult. It's a little cult-like, and it's understandable because these were written and that's why we're going to try to reframe them.
Okay, let's reframe it.
Give them some maybe deeper significance in our lives. But again, rules are made to enhance freedom, not to take away our freedom. Okay. Rules enhance. It's like the yamas and the niyamas of the yoga system. You need yamas and niyamas of how to chant, of how to meditate. Okay. It's not just random.
Yeah. And the word for offense is in Sanskrit is aparad. Now, aradhana means worship, and aparada means that which, let's say, hinders one's worship. Right? Aparad. It's the opposite of worship, or it's going the wrong direction of worship. And even the word worship, I think, to the American mentality is problematic.
We're going to rephrase that word.
So I looked up worship, and I think this is really good. Here's the definition: the feeling or expression of reverence or adoration to a deity. Right. So, like, in other words, it has to do with a feeling in the heart that I want to have, a feeling of adoration or love. Right. That's called worship. And so aparada would mean that which hinders the growth of those feelings, so the manifestation of those feelings, which is my true nature underneath. Okay. Sure. So the 10 offenses to the chanting of holy names could be translated as 10 things that hinder the development of these beautiful sentiments of divine love.
Right.
Okay.
Worship is such a loaded word too, because worship means I'm insignificant. We hate that, and you're the best.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things. Whether we admit it or not, we worship things, people, TV shows. Me and Rocco have been listening to the Maha Mantra when we get in the car, when we drive, and we're like, as soon as we get in the car, we're just like, we're worshiping that book. So like things like Maha Mantra, they direct that worship or that love to appropriate heroes: Krishna, Arjuna, Yudhisthira, Satyaki. You start to fall deeply in love with these people, and then you start the archetypes of evil. You start to think, this is not what I want. But we will go to worship, whether we call it worship or not. There will be objects of there'll be a person who does a podcast that you love. There'll be who's a musician that you love. The heart does go out and give respect to somebody out there. And so the Bhagavatam is directing our worship towards people that will actually bring us higher in our spiritual life. Okay, 10 offenses. Kaustubha.
Ready? So let's read them first straight through.
All right. Can I read the old ones?
Read the old ones straight through first.
The old ones, 1 through 10.
1 through 10.
Okay, and we're gonna see, and you're gonna notice they might like cause your hair to stand on end in a bad way. Like, oh, that sounds weird. Yeah. Okay, here's the first one: to blaspheme the devotees who've dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. Mira, never do that. 2, to consider the names of the demigods like Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. That sounds very cult-like.
Totally, yeah.
Right. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version. That's just confusing, I think. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6, to give some interpretation of the holy name. That one needs an interpretation in itself. 7.
No interpretation.
7.
Look at you immediately.
to commit sinful activities on this. That's very Christian heavy, yes. Christian heavy handed. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name.
Sinner.
8, to consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruit activities, karma kanda. That one needs a complete overhaul, okay. I think. 9, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. That one needs explanation too, because that's what we do every day, it seems. 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. And then 11, they throw this one as like a side note, a PS. It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting.
If that wasn't
anyone
enough.
who claims to be a Vaishnav must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna prema.
Okay, so
There
let's
is
translate this.
Yeah, there is a, what do you call it? There is a fast track to our spiritual life. And sometimes with getting the fast track, you get some instructions like, hey, careful, there's a massive pothole over there. Careful, it's a one lane highway over there. It's a one lane bridge. Careful, there's no guardrails on that one lane bridge. You might have to really slow down. So here's Guru giving little nuanced details about how to chant so you can accelerate. And if I have no forethought and I just rush into all of this stuff, calamities happen along the way. Kaustubha, please give us an updated version of these 10 offenses, please.
Okay, I will humbly try to. Now, first, let's say the 10 offenses in the chanting of holy name. Let's translate that as 10 important considerations in the meditation on the Maha Mantra.
Nice.
Now, why don't you read the old ones and I'll translate them.
To blaspheme the devotees who've dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord. I'll say it in a real callous voice as well.
And I'll say it in a very gentle, loving way. One has to be very respectful and appreciative of people who are sincerely dedicated to practicing bhakti. You can buy into that? Okay. If we want this mantra to be deeply effective, one has to be very respectful and appreciative of people who are sincerely dedicated to practicing bhakti. Okay. 2.
Okay. 2. To consider the names of the demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. So
this has to do with conceptions. One has to have the clear understanding of Krishna as the root of all existence, as it's explained in a very straightforward way in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
That's great. I mean, especially nowadays, people go into a kirtan, and if the kirtan singers aren't necessarily in some bona fide disciplic succession, kirtan just becomes cultural, ethnic chant night, where they're just, every demigod is being chanted, and there's no conception or descending conception that there's a reason why we chant Durga mantras. There's a reason why you chant Krishna mantras. There's a reason why you chant Shiva mantras. And where are we going with all this? Is it just to sing cultural folk songs? Or is it to transcend the body? Or do you feel like, I'm feeling a little feminine tonight, I want to chant something to Maha Durga, or I'm feeling a little masculine, there's a way to do it, and we're sometimes missing the boat. So it's important from hearing the Bhagavatam to understand what demigod worship is, what worship of Guru is, what worship of Vishnu is, or else things can get really nebulous.
Oh, nice, Raghu.
Nebulous, Mara.
Okay, here's a heavy one, number 3.
To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. Sounds like the Guru's got you on a tight leash.
Yeah. One has to have deep faith in their spiritual teachers as representatives who embody the wisdom of the sacred texts and a willingness to take their guidance.
One has to have deep faith in the spiritual teachers as representatives that embody the wisdom.
Right.
Yeah, we got to stop looking at can I add to this?
Yeah, I mean, we're out of time. If you want to go a few minutes over, I mean, we're almost
we
out
got
of
to
time.
get back to this. This is good. We're at 5:58. Let's just wind it up.
Go a little over.
I think the idea is that Guru gives direction. It's not in a way to like control, but to keep the car on the road. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. That's the it's not.
Let me put it this way. You go into the practice of initiation saying, okay, I accept you as a person that's capable of helping me do this practice. So when they give me instructions to help me do the practice, I have to have a willingness to take those instructions.
Right.
Now, if those instructions are going against the teachings of these sacred texts in any way, then that's a red flag. If it's not something helpful for me developing humility and kindness and, attention and so on, then that's another thing. But if they're giving me instructions on how to follow this, I need to be willing to follow them.
Kaustubha, these are,
I guess we'll get back to that on Monday.
today's Friday.
Yeah.
Are we doing Q&A day before tomorrow's I'm in New York City at the Bhakti Center. Are we doing Q&A day tomorrow?
I believe, unless
Bhakti
there's any
Center?
reason. We could, I don't know when you're traveling, but we should do it. Right?
Already. We'll see you at 8 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks everybody joining us. I think this is going to be, Monday morning we'll get into all these 10 offenses. I got to keep my car on the track as well. Thanks everybody joining us live on Zoom. If you want to join us live on Zoom, you can, but you have to jump through a few hoops. First, you have to email Mara. She's the key holder. You got to email her at wisdomofthesages108@gmail.com. Then you make a commitment to focus in your chanting, your meditation, one round of japa a day, the Maha Mantra. That gets you in the club. But truthfully, that one round will access this information. It makes it easier to assimilate this information by chanting that mantra. The mind, come on, we know that. If your mind is all agitated, you can't hear, even when someone wants to give something good. So the Bhagavatam is giving so much good information, the Maha Mantra makes it really open. So email Mara, and then she will give you the secret codes to get in. Thanks for everybody who's already part of this Zoom group. We had a lot of people today. And all the people I didn't say good morning to, like Zenaida and Yaitza Lopez and Jamuna Jaya and Letty Nelson. And thanks to all the others out there listening from abroad. Krishna Drew, Surya Radhika. Any classes today, Mara?
No classes today.
Okay, this is a community-supported podcast. If you like what we're doing, go to patreon.com/Wisdom of the Sages. We appreciate your support, and we've tried to make it really wonderful. Like we have a whole on-school yoga line and classes and workshops with Kaustubha and myself. And it's quite a thing. It's a little Patreon party, including our 12-step recovery group, Bhakti recovery group. Now, the most important part of the day is sitting in front of our computer and chanting and dancing. And we've discovered that of all the dancing rituals, this makes you the happiest.